Hello. Hello, everyone. We've got Facebook, YouTube, and podcasts working all together all at once, which is wonderful. Welcome to tonight talk on who is Kryon. Why do I talk about Kryon? Because he's the important guy in the history of bringing forth information for everyone. So we're talking about Kryon. Kryon is the angelic entity, and he is channeled by Lee Carroll. Now, Lee Carroll is we'll talk about the man, but he's started having this information being brought forth to him, and he was at first a little shy and timid, but now it's been 30 years. This man has produced incredible amount of information, and I think it's really, really important to talk about him because this information is key to spiritual development and understanding humans, what we're doing here, and what's our role on this planet, and what's happening to the planet and to us at the same time. So, Kryon will often start his delivering his messages by saying, I am Kryon of magnetic service. So he's in charge of the magnetic grid for the planet Earth. Now, this angel helps us understand the spiritual nature of who we are and helps us grow. And why should I talk about him? Because Watkins, Mind, Body, and Spirit magazine in the UK has listed Lee Carroll as one of the most 100 most spiritually influential living people. So that's quite something. I mean, it's 100, but don't know where he's classified in 100, but I'd say he's in the top. Lee Carroll, the person who channels Kryon, organizes seminars and travels all around the world. So if you have not seen him yet, you still have a chance to be able to hear him live in person. He publishes all the information that he channels through books. And what I love about the messages that Kryon gives us is that it's easy to understand, it's practical, and it helps us understand things that seem so abstract and some people cannot explain it. Kryon, through stories and parable and explanation, is successful in giving us this information, which is why it's important for us to hear what he has to say. Now, Lee Carroll was a PhD and a business and economic degree from California, Western University in California. Lee Carroll, he started a technical audio business in San Diego. For 30 years, this man has worked. And he was quite successful. And then eventually a psychic told him that he had a very important spiritual path. Now, you have to, for a man that was, in business and economics and an engineer and all that spiritual thing, not so much for the guy. But then 3 years later, a second unrelated psychic told him the same thing. And they both spoke of a Kryon, which at the time, of course, was completely unknown. So he had no idea what this was all about. And he was a award-winning audio engineer. So how do you go from audio engineering to channeling, and also indigo children? Lee, as one said, that it had to hit him between the eyes, literally, to prove that his spiritual experience was real. I've had the chance to meet Lee Carroll in Vancouver during conferences that he was offering, and as well while I was traveling in Glastonbury, England. He was there with a group traveling during a spiritual tour, which was quite amazing. I'm sure he has no idea who I am. But I don't know. I just recognize him easily. So I just went, hey, you know me, right? Hello, how are you? And he's looking at me going, who are you? And I said, well, I've been to your conferences. I read your books. I refer people to your materials all the time, and keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. And so for him, it was in 1989 that it was the turning point for him, and he finally came together for him years after the psychic had already told him this was going to happen. So he started writing and what he was receiving as messages, and presented it to the metaphysical community of Del Mar in California. Now, that was the first start. And you know, when we start something like these videos or these talks, we start genuinely trying to share information and bring people to new understandings and new depths in their spirituality and their lives. And we have no idea where these things are going to take us. But for him, it took him to now something like 20 books later, which is quite amazing, and translated in 28 languages. So if you think that you have to know English to know Kryon, you don't. And it's worldwide. So he now travels all over the world. He's had seminars in the US, of course, in Canada, in Western Europe, Israel, Russia, Bulgaria, Poland, the Baltic states, and much of South America. And to this day, this man is still traveling all over the place, allowing us to get to meet him and hear him channel Kryon and give us information. He works with a spiritual partner. Her name is Jan Tober, and they started the Kryon-like groups in Del Mar in 1991. And they quickly moved from a living room setting to the Del Mar church. And now, whenever he does conferences, it can be up to audiences of 3,000 people. So, hey, I'm doing this out of my living room, but you just never know. What you get. I'm trying to get my backdrop to fit perfectly, but it's not. So I'm sorry about that. And in the beginning of the internet, Kryon had the largest consistent New Age folder in the history of the American Online, which is quite amazing when you think about it. The website, got to talk about the website, because it's a trove of gifts for you. The website address is www.kryon.com. So Kryon, Kryon.com. On there, he has recorded all of his presentations since the 2003, I think it goes back to, and they're still available. So if you're going onto the site and you're thinking, oh, it's frozen, it just takes a little while to load because it's got so much data on there. You have to be a little bit patient. But everything that he's ever done has been recorded, and it's all on there for free. They don't record your name. They don't request you to sign up for anything. It's free. And you're allowed to print all of the material on the website and share it with others, as long as, of course, you say it came from the Kryon website. You're not allowed to sell the material, because obviously the material is for free. But you can print it out and use it for your own spiritual growth and your own spiritual learning, and share it, which is amazing, really, when you think about it. There's over 100 hours of free audio in several languages. So not just in English. Some of the stuff has been translated, so obviously it's not going to be Kryon's voice that you will hear. But, I mean, the message is there, and it's available in several different languages. There's a very large forum of question and answer, featuring over 100 questions that are being answered. And it has tons of pages. They register up to 20,000 visits a day on the audio page alone. And what's nice is that you can download the audio and then listen to it on your, MP3 or iPod when you're ready to listen, and if you want to keep track of your listening. Now, that being said, I encourage you that if you're actually starting to listen to the audio, this isn't something that you want to do when you're busy. It's something that you want to do like you would read a book. You want to sit down, really listen to the information, make notes, and see your understanding of what you're listening to, not just throwing yourself into just listening for the sake of listening. It's important that you appreciate the trove of information that is in there. So I recommend taking it little bits at a time. Over a period of months, you have years of recording on there. So it's not something that you'd listen to on a weekend. But ask yourself as you're listening, journal about it and ask yourself, what am I learning? How does that relate to me? Does this mean anything to me? How does this work for me? Now, Kryon is very respected. Lee Carroll is a very respected orator. He's an author, but he was actually in 1995 invited to present to the United Nations in New York City. This talk was chartered by the group known as the Society for Enlightenment and Transformation, but the meeting was also accepted, and they were invited back 6 more times. And when we say they were, we mean Lee Carroll and Kryon as a unit, as a group. They were invited back in 96, 98, 2005, 2006, 2007, and 2009. So this is not like super old information. They've been re-invited, and they've been very current in what they were saying, addressing the United Nations, trying to help guide them into creating something new, a new way to view the world, a new perspective. And so these meetings were held upstairs in the working area of the UN building, not far from the General Assembly, but only the delegates of the UN and their guests were able to attend. So it was very private, but that was the presentation. The beauty of it is that everything is recorded and then transmitted to us. So that's the other wonderful thing about Kryon, is that everything that's being said, everything that is being shared is available to anyone on the planet. All you need to do is take in the time to actually pick what you want to listen to and actually take the time to listen. Now, Kryon represents 16 channel books. The books represent over 200 physical separate Kryon publications, since it's translated in 28 languages. I have all the books here, so I will be presenting all of them. Yes, it's a lot of reading, you'll see. And they get thicker and thicker as time goes. But what he's doing is that for the people that are not good at listening, they need to have something to read because they're more visual. You can access Kryon in so many different ways. So some of the material is transcribed from audio to written word. It's also available on the website, but they're available in books. And these books are available in libraries, and you don't have to buy everything all the time, right? So always look for, if you don't have a lot of money, for ways to get your library to maybe order these books, or see if your library already has them. They're very well-read books, so they're available in a lot of places. Now, I can't go into details about each of these books. It's just I've done it for the Celestine Prophecy, and you guys know, for the total of 4 books, I had to do 2 separate podcasts. But what I can do is I was planning today on presenting the books and introducing you to Kryon. The rest of it, if this intrigues you, if this interests you, and if you want to ask more questions, then it's up to you to log on onto the website. It's up to you to go and get the books. So, but maybe since it's an impressive number of books, it'll be good for you to have a summary of where would I tackle Kryon, and you'll see today which one of my favorite books, of course. There's one in there that's got to speak to you. But it doesn't replace Kryon's voice. So if you can, even if you don't really understand English well, just listening to his voice brings a certain inner peace. So it's lovely. But if you do understand English, I encourage you to listen at least to the parables available on the site. And for the parables, you're going to see it's going to say free audio. It's kind of a bubble, and you're going to click on that bubble. And then it's going to bring up all the different years, different bubbles for all the years. And then there'll be little squares, little rectangles. And parables is one of them. So the parables, for those of you who don't know, a parable isn't a story being told with no one in particular, but with whom you will often be able to identify. So that helps you being able to connect to what's being said and relate it to your own personal experience. So let's get started, right? Shall we? And to the people that are following live with me, hello. It's nice to see you all. So the first book, I'll show you in Facebook in a second, is Kryon, The End of Times. Kryon, The End of Time. So they all have their own title, of course, but this is commonly referred to as book one. Now, The End of Times was written in 1989 and published in 1993. So the first one took a little while to publish, and I can tell you as an experience, it's not always easy, even if your material is worthwhile reading and super important. Finding a publisher that believes in you and believes that they're going to make money off it is a whole other difference. So the first book took some while to get printed. However, in this book, he speaks of the seminars. It's actually the bestseller of his entire collection, and to this day. So even though it's the first work that Kryon has written, and it was written back in '89, it's still The End of Time is new information for personal peace. So this book is for the self, for yourself. So if you're looking for yourself and you're wondering, how can I work in these years? Now, it's very interesting because, as you'll see, we're going to go through the new millennium with him. We're going to go through 2012 with him. And there were things that people were worried about, of course, in 1999 that now we're scoffing at, and we're going, well, what were people so worried about? And then 2012 again. But the lesson in that is that there's always going to be someone trying to keep you afraid. There's always going to be someone trying to make money off your fear, and not relieving your fear, but encouraging it. And that's marketable, right? You can sell more stuff if people are afraid. They need protection. Kryon was very, very good at always reassuring us and guiding us, and telling us that we didn't need to be afraid, that the transformation that the planet is going through is a very important time right now. We are blessed in the time that we're living because of the planet's changing in vibration, in energy. It's helping us as humans and souls into this change as well. So very, very important books. And to this day, still valid. Now, book number 2. And if you have questions, it's live, so go ahead and ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer you. This is book number 2, Don't Think Like a Human. Don't Think Like a Human, book 2. This is published in 1994. So just 1 year after the first book was published, it was already publishing the second one. In the second book, it's more practical, and everything that's been channeled during that time is inside the book. So again, if you're not an audio person, or if you like to make notes, or if you want to refer to it, and it's hard to refer to a recording, but in the book it will say channeling of September 22nd, Delmar Light Group, and then off it goes and delivers the reading. So in this one, there's the science chapter, and so the science starts appearing. Why is science so important? Because if we can help the scientific mind, if we can help the people that are more atheist or have a harder time believing in those things, if we can relate what we're saying and explain it from a scientific point of view, which we're able to do now, we're able to link science to what people have said for years. In my shamanism course, I explained that the shamans have known that the drumming imitates the vibration of Mother Earth's vibration. That we were explaining things energetically that now people are accepting as a fact, but that's 500 years ago. They thought the shamans were crazy or savages or simply not knowing what they were talking about. So Kryon is starting in this book, and already in the second book, to relate through science, to explain things to us, to bring us to a clearer understanding of what he's explaining to us. He's easy to understand. He's approachable, even though he's an angelic presence, and it's nice to be able to relate to what he's saying in our human terms, in our present experience, in the year that we're in. So they went on with book number 3. Book number 3, Alchemy, Human Spirit. Book number 3. So you can see that they're simple books. There's not much wasted on the graphics or the designs. Everything is put on the inside. In this book, what's interesting is that it gives the best of the 1995 channels, but it breached on some subjects like ascension and responsibility. Ascension is something that I talk about a lot with Lemuria, with the Telos and Mount Shasta trips, and responsibility is I really approach this and explain this and talk on the Una principle, the Hawaiian principle of spirituality. We are responsible. What we live is based on our choices and our decisions. And sometimes, yes, it's hard. Sometimes, yes, it's complicated. However, that being said, it's still our choice. And so doing the right thing is sometimes harder. However, the results will change our lives. And that's what he approaches in here. And it's also subtitled as a transition to the new age. This new age is this responsibilization of who we are. Now, remember, this was written in 1995. Back then, recycling was just starting. Back then, the electric cars weren't really around. I'm not even sure if the internet was around back then. So, or if it was in this very, very, very early beginnings. So, it's talking about our thoughts, our actions, how we are affecting the rest of the world, how we are, how we can change things. We sometimes, and I hear this a lot. It's just me. I was watching a movie on Netflix called Wishman, sorry, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but he's the man who started the Make-A-Wish Foundation for children. This one man had the idea that terminal children should be at least getting one last wish before they die. This was the idea of one man who, supported by his friends and the community who believed in him because he was a good man, helped him start this foundation. And it's now granted over 450,000 wishes. That's just one man. So imagine what you can do. Imagine what change you can bring about in this world that will affect, who knows how many thousands of people. When Lee started this, I'm sure he had no idea how big he was going to be and how much an influence he was going to be, up to the point where he talked at the UN nations and United Nations and stuff. We don't know unless we try. We won't know unless we actually put in an effort and we give our dreams and our ideas time to grow, time to expand, and time to breathe life into it. So this is what this book is about. It's the book that starts introducing maths, explaining numerology and numbers, and why numbers are so meaningful and so important. We will have a talk on numerology in a few weeks. So if numbers interest you, this is the book for you. And if you want to know more about numerology, come back in a few weeks for this talk. Now, my favorite book of all time, The Parables of Kryon. See, this one is beautiful. This one is published by Hay House, so different publication, but The Parables of Kryon are the ones that I told you you can listen on for free on the website. But each of the parables are written in here. And some of the material, although it's in recording, it's not necessarily been transcribed, because I guess they were trying to keep a certain semblance of information to tie it into a book. And so the parables, the book on the parables, contains only the parables. It's a beautiful book. And some of those can be read to children. And it's a wonderful way to reach children and explain spirituality to them, and allowing them to understand concepts that sometimes we as adults have a hard time explaining. And yet Kryon does it so simply that even children may understand these. And this is something that you can share with your children, your grandchildren. It's a way to grow together and a way to understand spiritual concept from an imagery, from a story, as opposed to trying to explain a concept that is unseen and unfelt. My second favorite book is called The Journey Home. The Journey Home. Now, The Parables of Kryon, just by the way, were published in 1996. So as you can see, he's publishing pretty much a book every year. This one, The Journey Home, has been also published in a children's edition. So you have the adult and you have the children edition. It's the same story, but it's more adapted for children to understand from age 9 to 13, assuming that 14 and up, this will be clear enough for them to be able to read. They were published in 1997. Originally, as a hardcover book, they had illustrations in it. Now, if any of you ever find The Journey Home hardcover with the illustration, please let me know. I would love to get that copy. All I have are the soft covers. The parable explains the story of, it's a novel. Compared to all the other books, which are segments of different channeling that Lee did throughout the year. This is one long parable, if you will, one long story, which is long enough to be entitled a novel. In the story, Michael goes through 7 houses and talks to seven different angels. It's based on the seminars between 1998 and 1999, who actually cut up the book into pieces to try and explain to people all the golden nuggets that were hidden in there. So there's a lot of learning packed in this story. If you're not interested in the channeling as much, this would be a great way to learn about spirituality. And like I said, you have the children's version or the adult version. This man is trying to get back home, which is why it's called The Journey Home. And while he's traveling to these 7 houses, he answers important practical living principles that Kryon's trying to teach us. And it's an unusual book for Kryon. It's the only one he's written like this so far. But it's got everything a novel should have, right? It's got adventure, it's got danger, it's got battles, it's got spiritual purpose, it's got love and romance. So, I mean, it embodies it all. But if you can detach yourself a little bit, just like we did in the Celestine Prophecy, if we detach ourselves from the movement and adventure, and we actually start looking at the actual journey that he's taking and the growth that he's going through as he's traveling through these 7 houses through with these 7 angels, then we realize that this can be applied to our lives. So I don't want to give away too much because this is kind of a novel one. So I want you to discover that for yourself. But the children's version was really easy to read. I actually went through this book with my 2 younger girls when they were about 9 and 11 or 9 and 10, and we read a chapter every night, and then send them off dreaming into this adventure land, and they really enjoyed it as well. So and maybe while you're reading it with your children might start asking questions, and that might deepen your understanding as well. I find that when I'm put in a position to having to explain something or having to teach something, I have to really understand the concept that I'm trying to teach. And so if I'm trying to teach, I have to be able to explain it more than one way. I have to be able to bring it to the people in a way that everybody can understand, everybody can relate. And so I have to really understand what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to explain. And so sharing these books, doing book club, book study, really helps our growth as a group, but individually as well. If you're looking for a way to do this, one of my recommendations would be find 3 or 4 friends, even 2 if that's all you have. But you don't have to be located close to each other. You don't have to physically meet in one place. You can do a Skype, you can do FaceTime, you can do Messenger, you can do different ways. And you read one chapter, and one of you has to explain what they understand, and then there's a discussion that follows. You see, that's the thing about the material that Kryon gives us. It's not just for us to read and put it away and forget about it. It's meant for us to read, cut it to pieces, understand it, and then ask ourselves, how does this work in my life? How can this be applied into my life? So always keep that in mind whenever you're reading some of his books. And that's the purpose of having these conversations with you, right? Making these videos, making you aware of how. So, and I get that a lot question. So how do I work on myself spiritually? How do I develop spiritually? I had someone calling me today and asking me, so where do I start? I'm like, well, it's a very big, wide, what's your interest? Where would you like to start from? Right? If your interest is Mac, it's book 3. If your interest is personal, it's book 1. If you're completely new to this, try the novel. Introduce yourself in a way that you will feel comfortable, that it doesn't shatter your world to pieces, where you're going to be so transported into another world that you can't relate to it anymore. Always find a relatable point and then make it work for you. Now, book 6, Lovely Green, book 6, is Partnering with God. It was published in 1997, and it was written for information to help us face millennium, right? So, to help us go through year 2000. And I guess this is when years about 2000 must have started, and I don't know, I can't remember. I was never the afraid apocalyptic old kind of person. So he was continuing to teach always, right? So sometimes he might take something that he explained in book 1, but go further into it and explain it with more information. But it includes the most moving channeling from 96 and 97 from all over the world. So it's not like he just picks the English one from the US. He'll pick from all over the world. And more science, validation, explaining and proving what he's explaining through science. And there's a full chapter on indigo children in this one, a full chapter. So if indigo children is your thing, there's one book on indigo children alone, but there's also indigo information in this one. that you might find practical if you've been identified as an indigo child, or if one of your children is an indigo. This has a full chapter on it to help you understand what's their role, what's their purpose. I also did a video on indigo crystal and rainbow children, so you're welcome to watch that as well. And there's a huge chapter on the most asked questions in the past 2 years with the answers. So it's kind of nice because we can transcribe the channels, we can listen to the channels, but we can't ask questions, right? That they've all been done, they're all in the past now. However, they took the time to write those questions and write the answers for us. So now we have, if things have been eluding you, you have some answers in there. Pardon me. Now, book 7, Letters from Home, is what is entitled. It's a lovely violet color. It's messages for the family. This book was published in 1999, and it helps us refocus on family. Family has different meaning for different people. If you're an only child, you're saying, well, my family's pretty small. But you may have cousins, you may have aunts, uncles. For some people like me, you have 8 siblings, and you have all the family you need right there at home. But family, for sometimes, if you're isolated, it becomes the people you have ties with. And my family, my tribe that I've built up with you guys. You're part of my family. It's a different family. It's not a biological family. It's not a blood-related family, but a family all the same, because we can relate to each other. We can talk. We can hug. We can spend time together, and we go through things together. We evolve together. We grow together, and that's what a family is all about. There's a lot of good news. Kryon was never the guy to want to scare us. On the contrary, he was trying to bring us some peace and encourage us to understand how this change, this shift that everybody was talking about was going to take place, and how it was for the better and not for the worse. So he calls it the New Jerusalem. It's, again, channels from all over the world, especially those in 1998. But it includes all the transcription from the family series. What is the family? What is it about? How do we heal the family? And the transcription from the 1998 United Nations visit. So as you can see, they're getting thicker and thicker because he's doing more and more conferences, more and more presentation, and therefore more and more channels. And he's confident at this point of the work that he's doing. So he's putting everything he can out there to help us, all of us, understanding the change and help us get through it. Now, the next book, the next book is Passing the Marker. Obviously, the marker being the year 2000. And Kryon is very explicit. There's a different energy. The energy is shifting. The energy is changing. So yes, something important is happening in the year 2000. Something that we had not seen before, experienced before, that nobody could have written about before. But he's guiding us through these change. He's actually explaining in this book what's happening to your DNA. Now, people are going to say, well, how is it possible that energy is changing my DNA? My DNA is inside of me. I've been born with it. I'm stuck with it. But what are we humans made of? Right? So go back to shamanism, go back to Akashic Records. You're made of energy. And this is not real. This is part of a vision that you're having. This is part of a play. And so therefore, just like an actor can go backstage, put on a fake nose, change his clothes, and come back on stage as if a week, 10 years had elapsed, but really only 5 minutes went by. We can do the same with our DNA. Kryon explains the third language. He explains science predictions and the potentials that are coming about with the year 2000 and what to expect, and what has been accomplished with this energy shift. The book is packed with special features, like an update on the Indigo children, a chapter on what's happening in regards to the Indigenous Council of Elders, recommended by Kryon at the United Nations. So the United Nations are actually applying the recommendation that Kryon is reading to them. And so this book has a lot of updates on all these previous channeling and how they're affecting the world, how they're changing the world, one at a time. So marvelous one. And don't think that because we've passed the year 2000 that we're not afraid about this new millennium, that the information in it is not relevant. On the contrary, you're going to be able to see that the information in the book predicted exactly what's happening. The New Beginning was published in 2002, and it's 2002 and beyond. What's going to be happening? Now we've survived the millennium. Things are happening. The energy is shifting. The human body is changing. We are changing. Consciousness of the people on this planet is changing. Making these videos just 20 years ago would have been ludicrous. Nobody would have watched it, and I would have been carted away probably in a ambulance and put in the white padded cell. It's the reality of things is that now people are more open to what we're offering. People are more open to saying, I've had personal experience, I've experienced this, I've been through that. We have now, I remember the first book that was on that experience. It was like, oh my God, can this be true? Is this real? Did he imagine all this? And now it's such practice that we've accepted this, near-death experience, coming back from the white light, seeing the souls, being greeted, having this great sense of peace. All of these experiences are available to us to let us know that you don't need to fear physical death, because your soul lives on. Your soul doesn't die. And now it's okay to talk about these things, and it's generally well accepted. There's even I know personally an atheist that doesn't believe in anything, and he is willing to admit that, well, I don't know about God, but maybe, just maybe, our soul lives on. So this 9th book happened after the events of 9/11, and it talks a little bit about how does it all work in the spiritual world when these traumatic incidents happen. So it doesn't ignore the daily events or the tragic events that take place. It includes the live channels from 2001 and 2002, and including the Israel message that he delivered in Tel Aviv. But it speaks to us about acknowledging that we're more than humans. It speaks to us about being interdimensional beings, and very loving solutions to everyday questions. How do we deal with the hurt? How do we deal with the anger? How do we manage to move past these events and continue? How does that give meaning to our lives or what we do? Obviously you have to be very open-minded for what I'm about to say, but when someone dies, especially a child, we find it very difficult to accept, because we think this child was innocent, this child didn't do anything wrong. Why did the child have to die? But in the recent case that I've been working with, the child was 12, and he managed to donate 7 organs to help 7 other children. Because let's face it, the organs have to match the size of the recipient. And so for a child to get a organ, a child has to pass away. And the parents are dealing with their grief, celebrating his life, even though it was extraordinarily short, by realizing that their child may be absolutely stunning and beautiful. To make sense of a terrible loss, they love the child, but to give meaning to his life by his organ donation. And they're able to live with his absence, knowing that his death was not in vain. So this is a different perspective, a different way of looking at things. Instead of just looking at the loss, at looking at what is given to us and what is provided. And that's what book 9 is about. Helping us find new beginnings, helping us find new solutions in love. Don't forget, that's the key thing. It's getting the love back, giving your heartbeat again, getting through the day without surviving, but living and finding happiness and finding peace again. Then in book 10, A New Dispensation, was published in 2004. He's trying to, it's packed with the channelings from 2003 and 2004. But he's explaining the shift in energy and why there seems to be an increase in violence and fighting for a little while. And this is something that he's not the only author presenting this information. In a Celestine Prophecy later last fall, I explained that there's a last resurgence of this negative energy, this warlike energy, this old energy, trying to survive and giving it its last before having to give up, because there'll be nothing left feeding it. People are tired of fighting. People are tired of dying for something that they don't believe in. This shift in who's having the power, this shift in who is holding, how can I explain this? Let's look at the Catholic religion. I'm Catholic, so I'm going to pick on my own religion. The Pope and the church are losing the people. And that's why the Pope before this one actually resigned and said, we need someone else, because we're losing everybody. And maybe this guy will do a better job at bringing people back to the faith. These shifts that people held, these strength, some call it guiding, some call it manipulating, call it whatever you want. But these people had a lot of influence. They had a lot of power, and they're losing that. They're losing that power. They're losing that influence. And so this book is telling us, how is that going to stabilize? How is that going to move about? It's important to understand. So this was written in 2004. Things have progressed quite a lot. You could still be living in a bubble, and you could still be very negative about looking the way you look at the world. But I've traveled all over the world, and I've seen things that I've seen the change. I've seen how things are different. Not everything is perfect, but I am seeing what he was saying. He was saying, don't despair. There's things that need to happen before peace can happen. And so this book explains these things. So now we know, things have quieted down quite a bit. There's more peaceful resolution. There's a lot more help. We're coming together, helping other countries, while helping devastated area. We're working together. But it's interesting to see what the message was that Kryon was giving us while we were in this turmoil. Will this turmoil happen again? I don't think so. Personally, I think that it's, it's like an earthquake. There's sometimes a little bit of an aftershock, but it's never as big as the earthquake itself. And I think that things are nicely settling in and shifting. So more and more people are calling me, emailing me, asking me questions, wanting to know where to start, wanting to know, so how do I do spirituality without religion? A man called me today. He says, my wife is learning Reiki. It's not over, Paula. Just keep watching. He says, but my wife is learning Reiki. My wife is meditating, and this is really, really stressful for me because she's never done this before. Does this mean we have to split up? And we had like an hour conversation with this gentleman, and I said, why? You see, that she starts meditating doesn't hurt anybody. And then I explained what Reiki was, which helped the poor man because he had no idea. I think that part of him thought she was joining a cult or something. So we explaining to him what was Reiki. So sometimes we need to help people understand. These changes are happening so fast that they don't necessarily have a place to refer to from. And they have no idea. And so what do? They do what we always did. They react in fear. They're afraid. And then I told him, I said, that you're a couple, or that you're friends, or that you're neighbors, or that you're adjoining countries, it's okay not to always have the same opinion. It's okay to not have all the same ideas. What's not okay is beating the crap out of them, telling them, no, you're wrong and I'm right. What's okay is listening to what they have to say and hearing them, maybe for the first time, letting them present how they feel, how they view things now, and allowing them to show us a different perspective, right? In all the work that I do, I never try to convince people that I'm right and that everybody else is wrong. On the contrary, I'm trying to show you different perspective. I'm trying to give you the tools so that you're able to go out and do your own research, do your own reading, and make your own opinion. But I've done some of the work for you in the sense that I only talk about the people that I think worth talking about. I talk about and I explain theories presented by people who have made their mark on this world, that have influenced me positively, have helped me change, have helped me grow, and I can only see that as a good thing for everyone. So if you didn't know about these people, it gives you a perspective, gives you an idea about who they are. And maybe it has no interest for you, but maybe you're discovering something brand new. And I've been at this for so long that sometimes I'm thinking, everybody knows Kryon. And then I mention his name and people are like, oh, what's that? It's not a that, it's a he, actually. But I realized that I need to get out of my bubble and share what's been inside my bubble all these years. So hence these talks. So I hope you're enjoying them. Now, moving on to book 10. Lifting the Veil. Book 11. Lifting the Veil. There we are. Lifting the Veil. Nice gold-colored book. It's interesting because they refer to it as the new energy apocalypse. Now, the word apocalypse actually comes from the Greek and literally means lifting the veil. So now if we're putting that into the translation, it would be the new energy lifting the veil. Now, if taking the course on mediumship, or if you do mediumship, or I often teach that as every time you're afraid, you're putting a veil over your eyes. You're putting a veil over your face. Now, if you do the experiment at home, even though there's see-through veils, but if you put 4 or 5 in front of your face, it would become difficult to discern colors, to discern shapes, to discern what's happening, or finding your way in the dark. This book is about lifting these veils, lifting these fears. It's explaining to us that we've reached a crossroad, and through the loving and comforting words of Kryon, he gives us the clarity we need to finding our way. It's the channeling that were done all over the planet during that was written in 2007. It talks somewhat about 2012, because now we've passed the millennium, right? Everything is fine from the millennium, and now we're jumping into the next sphere, which was the Maya calendar, the 2012. So instead of focusing on the fear, Kryon is helping us to focus on what's our task on this planet. Kryon's message has never changed. But now as the events are unfolding, and the consciousness of humans all over the planet is growing, is becoming more open, more understanding is taking place, less judgment is taking place. We're able to transcend this perception of doom and gloom, and we're able to see past the fear what is in the beyond, what is open to us. It's allowing us to finally see past the veils, lifting the veils off of your head and finally seeing the truth. And then you know that Kryon likes to talk about math, and he likes to talk about science. And so therefore, there's a very scientific book, the 12th book, called The 12 Layers of DNA. A few books before, he was talking about how our DNA changed because the energy is changing, the quantum energy that is making up everything. Your dog's made of quantum energy. Your table's made of quantum energy. We're made of quantum energy. If you're having a trouble understanding that, just think about it. Water is made of atoms, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen. Our body is made of 80% of water. So we're made of 80% of hydrogen and oxygen, and then all these other things. But all of these other things are a connection of these atoms coming together. However, they're not coming together really nice and tight and closing without a space. There actually there's a lot of space between those atoms. And the glue that keeps it all together is the quantum energy. And if this quantum energy is affected by our beliefs, is affected by our thoughts and our actions, and is affected as well by everyone around us, then as the world around us is changing, this energy is shifting. And as this energy is shifting, we are made of this energy, and therefore we're shifting as well. And you can see that the progression is no longer slow and painful. It's exponential. So changes are happening really fast. So this book is explaining that the DNA is the chemical blueprint, and that 90% of the DNA has not been coded. Scientists are calling it junk DNA. In this book, he explains that the rest, although it's puzzling scientists and physicists and all these other searchers, may carry the answer, that we may, in our own DNA, carry our Akashic Records. We may, it may represent many more things than just the physical world. In this DNA, we have our emotion. Just take what's referred to as a mental illness, which is really an emotional illness, to correct it, the term. They say that they can be transmitted through parents and handed down. So how is an emotional illness transmitted? Scientific are saying, well, it's chemical imbalance, yada, yada, yada. And yet, this chemical imbalance is still caused by emotions. And so if the emotions are causing a reaction in our physical body, Why is it such a big leap to say that it's encoded in our DNA? Our emotional reaction is part of who we are, in the very coding of who we are. We're talking coding, so if some of you have seen the movie Matrix, will understand. In the Matrix, they're coding everything. They can code a girl with big boobs, red dress, walking down the street, and they can code a car, they can code anything. Our soul is coding our physical appearance and our physical reaction. So you're not bound by anything that you may thought you have been bound by. What is binding you more than the actual DNA itself? Because now the DNA is movable, they're changeable, and it has to do with energy. What you need to change now is the karma that's linking you to your past, to your family, and that's what's being passed down. We have ancestral karma. This ancestral karma can be from our relatives, but it can also be from our community. It can just think of Salem and all the witch burning that happened. The karma in that area, these people had to go through to reduce this karma, deal with this karma. So it's a geographical karma. There's also a country karma. I'm going to try to pick a country that's not going to offend anybody, so I'm going to pick Canada. But we were settlers. We have created karma first. The white settlers have created karma with the natives that were here, and everything that was done to the two groups. And then when they finally became friends and settled, then the English came, and then there was another fight and another war and more karma, and we're carrying this. And it is why the Canadian government can apologize for something that was done not by them, but by the entity that is our government. Because the karma is still being carried forward. And so it's never too late to make peace. It's never too late to apologize. And the effect is profound because it clears away not just your own personal karma, but your family karma, your community karma, your country karma. So if every one of us makes an effort to change, we're changing more than just ourselves. We're changing everything. So in this book, he has a lot of revelation about the 12 layers of the DNA. There's nice colored charts inside. I don't know if I can show you any. There's some color. But he's explaining a lot of the esoteric breakthrough. Their presentation is easy to understand. So don't think that because it talks about DNA that you need a PhD in, I don't know, DNA research. That's the beauty of Kryon, is that he's able to explain things in a way that everyone can understand. And so I was really looking forward to it because I wanted to know what was in that junk, right? I mean, we all have junk laying around the house, right? We have garage, we have boxes, we have under the cabinets, we got stuff stashed everywhere. And then we start looking at it, and then we realize that, I'm not using this anymore. But sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, this is where that went. And I've been looking for this for ages. And we're finding things that are triggering us. In the same way, there's certain things from our past lifetimes that we just stored in our DNA to deal with at a later time when we're all more mature and more prepared to deal with those things. And then book 13. Book 13 is the recalibration of humanity. Recalibration of humanity. It's 2013 and beyond. Now I realize we're in 2020, so it seems like it's a little outdated when we're looking back. However, it speaks of the significant corner, because this is 2013. So now we've all lived past the 2012 scare. Everybody is alive. The planet is still here. We haven't gone through some massive destruction. Most of humanity is still here. So he's now explaining how we're being recalibrated, how we're being changed, and how is humanity evolving. So when you look at the history and what's happening now, and comparing things and seeing how those changes are important and essential, he speaks of these events in relation to the Maya calendar, explaining that sometimes, because we react in fear, we're thinking, oh, well, it marks the end of the calendar. Yes, it does. But what it was marking was the end of an era, and something profound happened and created change, so that a new calendar was going to be required, because the events were going to move us and grow us so much that the Mayans couldn't conceive that at the time they conceived the Mayan calendar. So Kryon says that this is the beginning of the new Earth. So a lot of you heard me talk about planet ascension, planet shifting from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. The planet itself is recalibrating, and we're living on it. And so we're recalibrating with her. She's ascending, meaning raising our vibration, evolving in consciousness, and allowing us at the same time with those energies that she's producing, like, she's producing energy like the sun is producing energy. And we're right there on her. So we're absorbing this, and we're recalibrating ourselves. We're recalibrating the dark and the light. We're creating a new future. We're becoming more aware of, the importance of creating something that's not going to damage the planet. That's easy to judge people in hindsight. But imagine if instead of having the Ford T that was created as a car and sold and made popular, we had Tesla's electrical car. Our planet would look so totally different today, pollution-wise, petrol-wise, the way that we're desperate to find oil. We're going to run out of oil, and we're not going to have a choice. We're already switching to hybrid vehicles, and we're going to have to switch to electrical vehicle. And we're now switching on how we're producing this electrical energy to a more environmental friendly, using things that are free, like the wind and the sun rays that are going to be there anyway, so might as well use them. And it's not endangering the fauna, it's not endangering the environment. So we're being more conscious about what we're creating and inventing and putting into place. So this is what Kryon's explaining, how we are changing, how we are growing. In this book, what's interesting is he also puts his own person, Lee, as a person, as an individual, with his 23-year adventure with Kryon, is also commenting and putting his own thoughts on the growth and the change, and what that has brought to him in his life, and what has changed. Now, the thing that was created after was the book 14, which I've apologized, I don't have. This one is just brand new. It just came out, and it talks about the human evolution. It's called The New Human. So following on the topic written in The Recalibration of Humanity, he follows through in this phrase of the new human, describing humanity as it starts to increase its awareness, and begins to fulfill all the old prophecy of the ancients. And he dubs it that it's the highest consciousness humans have ever seen. The book contains mostly unpublished crime channels from 2013 to 2016. So, like I said before, earlier, not every single channeling make it into a book. If they're recorded, they should be on free audio on the website. But this one contains the unpublished stuff from 2013 to 2016, including the 13 channelings from the Israel tour. And this is what's happening, is that now instead of just doing a one weekend workshop, he'll do an entire tour and he'll be channeling throughout the entire tour. This can be done on a cruise. He has one coming up in Iceland in 2020. So it has the information to make you feel safe and secure in your own personal evolution. And it's safe and it's okay to partake and grow in that. Now, after these 14 books, 13 books, 14. What are we? 14 books. They've created a special series. The series is built on themes, particular themes. So with the help of author Monica Murani, sorry, Monica, I can't say your last name properly. She spent years researching all of the Kryon reading and organizing them by themes and topics. So the first one that she published, and it's a trilogy, so there's 3 of them, is the Gaia effect. The Gaia effect speaks of all of the explanation that Kryon offers of what is happening regarding Gaia consciousness. So regarding the planet's growth, the planet's evolution. So again, this is to simplify. People coming in now, getting to know Kryon today, and they're looking at the pile of 14 books and they're going, that's a lot of reading, and I'm not that much of a reader, or I'm not sure that, it's all relevant, or this interests me. The beauty of this collaboration between Lee Carroll, Kryon, and Monica was to summarize all of the readings done concerning Gaia. So inside of that, it speaks of the ley lines. It explains nodes and nulls. It explains portals and what they are. It explains the things about the Pleiadians. What are they? Where are they? The actual purpose of the crystalline grid, which is being worked on and realigned by the people living inside the planet in subterranean levels. Among those people is the Talos people from Mount Shasta. It answers a lot of the questions, and it's based on, again, all of the reading. And Lee has helped and cooperated to make this a complete book. So the other one, now, if you've taken my class on the Akashic Record, you'll understand that the human Akash is very, very important. It's where your personality comes from. It explains some of your fears and your phobias. It explains why sometimes we're prodigy, because we retain the knowledge from our previous life of singing, music, arts, or whatever. So again, Monica Murani, with the cooperation of Lee Carroll and Kryon, compiled everything that Kryon has ever channeled on the Akash. So this book is includes the material never published in Kryon. And in addition, she asked 30 extra questions. So I guess as she's compiling all these things, some things were probably not always clear. She didn't understand everything. And so she added an extra 30 questions and answers from Kryon himself to be clarifying everything we need to know about the human Akash. So again, the human Akash is part of the subject-driven trilogy. The last book in this trilogy, The Human Soul Revealed. What is the soul? I've tried to explain this to a lot of people. And for those of you who don't get access to me, who can't show up for my classes, this is, again, a great book. Like the other last 2 books, it was a compiled from everything that Kryon has ever channeled on the soul. So 26 years of loving messages are in this book, and it speaks about the human soul. Again, some of the material has never been published before, and again, she asked many questions, which Kryon is answering. Right. So remember, although she's working with Lee Carroll, who's fully cooperated fully with her research and putting these books together, he's also channeling Kryon to make sure that, to the best understanding for all of us, all the questions are answered. So a great book summarizing the human soul, what we're all about. And last but not least, the Indigo Children. Now, in my Indigo, Crystal, and Rainbow Children talk, I did refer to this book. This book was published in 1999. It's a lot of different articles by different people working with different aspects of children, teachers, therapists, parents having to deal with Indigo children. It's, at the time, was groundbreaking. Answered a lot of questions for me in my life, helped me deal with children in a much more conscientious way. We walked away from the children should be seen but not heard to actually giving the children a voice, giving the children a space, and allowing them to build their opinion, to express those ideas, and to encourage them to be creative, to be helpful, to be community leaders. This book talks about different ways of handling children as opposed to medication, because a lot of Indigo children are diagnosed with ADD, ADHD. And so the book allows us different perspective from different care providers, what they've tried, what they've done, and how has that changed the kids. Their behavior, and how they're relating to classmates, homework, family. Again, so I'm going to repeat the website for Kryon. It's www.kryon.com. And be patient, it's huge. So it does take a little bit to load, but there's so much material there. If you're interested in buying the books, the website offers a bookstore, so you can purchase any and all the books there. But like I said, if you're a person of lesser means, you can go to the library. A secondhand bookstore will often carry some of the books. And I truly believe that the one you're meant to read is the one that's going to be jumping off the shelf at you, or be the one that's there at the used bookstore. Don't think that you have to read all of them. But if you're someone like me who likes to do a research and likes to have all the information, it's essential for me to have all of them. If you have questions, I always welcome the questions, period. Through email, Messenger, Facebook. We're live, so you can ask your question, and I'll be happy to answer. But the beauty, again, of Kryon is the teaching. It's for everyone. It's for children, teens, and adults. It's easy understanding of spirituality, of who we are, why we are here, and how are we changing and growing and evolving. It can help people who are spiritual. It can help scientists. It can help mathematicians. And it rounds up spirituality in a way that everyone can find a way to understand what is being said and what is being taught. The explanations are simple. They present concepts outside of barriers of religion, of community or ethnicity. One of the main characters in the parable's name is Woe. So it could be woe man, it could be woe as in, oh, woe, life is me. It could be anything. It could be interpreted in so many different ways, but you can't attach it to a religion or an ethnicity. So everyone, therefore, can identify to the characters and what they're going through, and helping you get through what you're living, and finding a solution that is gentle and loving, easily adaptable to your everyday life, and helping you reconnect to your higher power. So that's it for me today. I hope that this presentation has been helpful. that all of you have gained some understanding of Kryon, and that this was helpful to all of you. I know some of you are live. I've got some people there, so I'm just going to give you 5 seconds to tell me if you have a question. Please just write it down. Gabrielle, anything? Paula, anything? I don't know who's on YouTube. It doesn't tell me, but if any of you have something, now's the time. Alrighty, then I will conclude today's presentation. And next week we're talking on numerology. So I will be talking about the importance of numbers and how do they relate, to our daily lives, from our birth to our life now, and how can we better plan our life around the information that is available to us through numerology. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the channel to always be aware of the new videos being posted. All right. Love you all.